Dating in Japan. Wow, this one's kind of complicated. The reason why I'm going to say this is complicated is because before I continue with dating in Japan, I have to remind you that this is based on my own personal experience and does not stereotype or put Japan in a bad image. You know, every Japanese person but yeah, basically every Japanese person, I don't know why I paused there, I apologize. Every Japanese person is their own unique individual, so do not judge Japanese people as a whole. I'm just going by what I experienced here for the 3 years I lived here. I'm going by women I dated and whatnot. Please do not see this as a full view of how Japanese women are. Remember, everyone's their own unique individual. So I'm gonna go by it. And also, as a heads up, I am Hispanic and Latino. So I'm gonna tell you why that's a little bit complicated. Ready? Let's go. So before I move on any further, dating in Japan. It's complicated. And the reason why it's complicated is because if you don't speak Japanese, you're not gonna date anyone. I know people have this fantasy where I'm exotic. If you think that's gonna work out for you, it's not in Japan. And the reason why it's not is because, you know, you don't speak Japanese. You gotta speak Japanese. At least N4, N3 level, but, you know, I'm pretty sure Japanese women prefer something higher. But like I said, it depends on the individual. Just remember that, okay? Individual. Not all Japanese women are the same. But yeah, you know, that's gonna be the hardest thing here in Japan is that you're gonna have communication issues. Unless you're someone who's very deeply invested in Japanese culture and how Japanese people live, dating would not be an issue for you. Maybe the cultural differences and the things you dislike. I mean, sure, I do love Japan. Don't get me wrong. There are some things I don't like, and it's kind of cold-hearted to think about, but we'll get to that in a bit. But anyway, yeah, dating here, if you don't know Japanese, you're not gonna get that far here in Japan. You're just not. I'm just being honest. Yeah. Just being honest. All right, let's move on to the next set. Japanese dating, or if you do get in a relationship eventually that leads to marriage, there's gonna be a couple of things I should mention here. I'm gonna try to keep it down to 2, but like I said, it's all based on the individual woman in Japan, okay? So let's say you do learn Japanese and you do date a woman that's traditional. You know, I'm not trying to say all traditional women are like this in Japan, or those who are deeply invested in the culture. But yeah, if let's say you decide to take that route and you date a Japanese woman, yeah, you're not gonna get your full salary. Let's say you have kids and whatnot, nachura, so on and so forth. I don't know why I said that. But anyway, that's what's gonna happen here in Japan. If you date someone that's Japanese, a woman might take out some of your salary. I mean, some Japanese men I've met here have experienced that. And there's some foreign men that I met here who experienced that too, where, you know, you're working and then maybe your wife works part-time or full-time. Let's hope you're in Tokyo because she has to work full-time. But yeah, if you decide to go to the countryside and date a traditional Japanese woman, that's what's gonna happen. And she might be older, just saying. I mean, Japan's a pretty old country. So if you're in Tokyo, Kanagawa, Osaka, Nagoya, Fukuoka, maybe a few other big cities in Japan, you should be okay, I hope. I can only speak my experience from, you know, I lived in Kyoto, I lived in Osaka, I lived in Kanagawa and Tokyo. So yeah, I think those are the best places to date if you're someone who's new to Japan. But like I said, you know, it depends on the individual, so be aware of that. But anyway, you know, if you do decide to date a traditional Japanese girl, that's gonna be hard, okay? It's gonna be difficult, and I hope you could deal with that cultural differences. And, you know, I'm not saying all traditional Japanese women do that based on the individual, so be aware of that, okay? Let's move on to what I was gonna say. Second, women that actually been abroad. Let's talk about that. So, women that actually been abroad, like Japanese women, you probably might prefer to date that than someone that's traditionally Japanese. And the reason why I learned this is because I remember there was a student I taught. She was an adult student, at least 25 years old. I was 28 at the time. Anyway, I remember I asked her, you know, like, why is the girl I'm dating at the time doing this and doing that? And she told me how good is her English. I was like, oh, it's probably just a little bit below intermediate, you know, probably like elementary. And I remember she told me, he's like, you never want to date someone that's traditionally Japanese because there'll be a lot of conflicts. And she mentioned that to me. She just said, yeah, you know, you want to date a Japanese girl that traveled abroad and learned English or has some understanding of different cultures. She says you don't want to date a Japanese person that only knows about Japan because that's really bad. And the reason why I'm going to bring this up is because Japanese people have stereotypes of different countries. I'm not saying all the time. I'm not saying that, you know, of course you're going to have that, you're going to find that needle in the haystack where you find an open-minded Japanese person. I've seen that plenty of times. Even one of my best friends that's Japanese here, he's never been abroad. Very open-minded, you know. I like his thinking. Like, sometimes I'll explain something to him. He's like, I never thought of it that way. That's super interesting. He's like, I want to travel abroad. He mentions that to me. But that's not going to happen all the time, okay? Just like, you know, when Japanese people come to America, we have stereotypes about Japanese people. When we don't understand, we're kind of ignorant or stupid. I hope it's ignorance, okay? Because ignorance could be fixed. Anyway, you know, just like we have stereotypes about Japanese people, Chinese people, whatnot, foreigners from other countries, Japanese people are the same way. I'm not saying all of them, but the ones who never traveled abroad, or they have traveled abroad and had a bad experience, it's kind of bad, you know. But for those who have traveled abroad and they had a great experience, yeah, those Japanese people generally are more open-minded. But I do remind you, it's all based on each individual. Some Japanese people are going to be more open to it, some are not. Some who never traveled abroad will be more open, and a lot of them are not. So be aware of that. But the reason why I want to mention this is because, as I said in this video, I am Hispanic and Latino. So let me tell you my personal experience, okay? I'm pretty sure every Hispanic and Latino person had it differently. So be aware of that, okay? Let's go. So being Hispanic and Latino. So this happened to me a couple months ago. I was dating a woman. You know, I mean, we broke up for different reasons, but anyway, you know, I remember when I first dated in Japan because, you know, being Hispanic and Latino, if you're the ones that have the colorful family, you know, you have people that are light as hell and have green eyes or blue eyes, or you have the family that's really dark and they look black. That's my family, essentially. So, you know, when I date, I always tell about my family culture because, you know, Japanese people can't imagine that. I'm serious, they really can't. Especially when you come from a family that's just a colorful rainbow, man. Just think of that, okay? My family's just colorful, let's just put it that way. So, you know, for me, that's family. Family is family. It is, man. Who cares? But, you know, I'm just saying, family is family. Don't mind that. So anyway, you know, I was dating a Japanese girl. So, you know, I told her in the beginning, like, hey, I'm Scotlando, I'm Mexican, Mexisco, and I was just telling her about my family's culture. So, you know, I told her, I was like, is this okay? Daijoubu, okay? And she's like, yeah. I was like, all right. So I didn't want to, you know, bring her to my family one day if our relationship went further. And she's like, oh, surprise! Colorful family. But anyway, guys, let's continue. Yeah, I don't want to surprise her. I don't want her to feel like I was hiding something from her because I have experienced this before. And yeah, it could lead to some uncomfortable situations or the person's just confused, like, whoa, why didn't you tell me this before? So I let her know ahead of time. I even showed her some pictures of my family and once our relationship got further. So yeah, you know, it was interesting. But, you know, it wasn't bad. I got to learn a lot. But the thing that was funny is that I eat Mexican food, okay? I like to say I'm Mexican American. Should have said that earlier in the video, but sorry about that. Anyway, we're eating Mexican food, and yeah, you know, I don't think she understands how to eat Mexican food. And it's hilarious because I remember ordering some tacos, and you know, and I also ordered quesadilla for all of us, and she got taco rice. And it was funny because when you eat quesadillas, you know, sometimes they'll have guacamole and you could dip it in guacamole. I mean, you eat quesadilla with your hands. So, you know, I always clean my hands. As soon as I get into the store, I get hand sanitizer or get hand wipes. Because in Japan, you always get hand wipes when you walk into a restaurant, the majority of the time. So anyway, you know, I clean my hands, I get ready to grab the quesadilla. As soon as I grab the quesadilla, she gets chopsticks, eats quesadilla with the chopsticks. I was like, okay, I don't know how long this relationship's gonna last. I know I shouldn't be negative about that, but she looked at me kind of shocked, like, why are you using your hands? I was like, why are you using chopsticks? And I get it. In Japan, you know, if you understand Japanese culture and, you know, let's just, because I don't think she's been abroad. Japanese culture, you know, grabbing things with your hands kind of unsanitary. You know, most Japanese people, most of their food is eaten with chopsticks. So, you know, she looked at me kind of shocked. And, yeah, it was just funny, how, she did that. And she just said, oh, that's how you eat your food. I was like, yeah, it's Mexican food. And I thought she was familiar with it, and she clearly wasn't. And I was like, oh, I should have noticed this. I should have caught on, because in Japan, you know, Japanese people don't express it really too much. But, you know, I just told her, I was like, you're okay. You know, I told her it wouldn't hurt my feelings if she didn't understand my culture. But yeah, I just told her, I was like, yeah, this is how you eat quesadilla. You go like this, you dip in some sauce, because we had guacamole. Yeah, it was a new experience for her to eat like that. That was hilarious. But yeah, this happened to me in Osaka because I live in Osaka. But also, the woman was much older than I thought. She was 46 years old and was divorced and had one child. So I was like, oh crap. Should have caught that on. Now, I'm not saying this happened to me all the time. There was another girl where she lived in Tokyo, and when I moved to Osaka, she said, yeah, I'm not going to Osaka. I was like, why? And she's like, well, Tokyo's the best. It's convenient, it's reliable, it's safe. She considered like a lot of gang members or bad people live in Osaka. I don't know, it was kind of weird too, so she kind of tripped me out. So yeah, just be aware of that too. And yeah, those are the only 2 Japanese girls I dated. Like I said, it's really hard to date someone that's Japanese. I mean, as soon as I do explain my culture sometimes, they get very confused, and it's just like, oh, I don't know if I should date you or not. So yeah, that's complicated, you know? And I know I look kind of shaggy, so, you know, this is not how I typically look. I always comb my hair or cut it shorter or shave. But yeah, also remember, a lot of Japanese women like something that's clean. They don't like hairy, so be aware of that. Just giving you a heads up. Sorry if it was off the topic, but yeah, just be aware. That's what you're going to experience in Japan. Now, I'm not saying, you know, you won't find a great relationship in Japan, but just be aware that there's going to be some nuances that may appear. So yeah, just be aware of that. So anyway, guys, just be careful what you decide to do in Japan. Rather you prefer to be you know, deeply invested in Japanese culture because that's something you love and wish to achieve, go for it. You know, I'm not judging you. Just be aware that there are going to be some cultural conflicts you may not understand. So be up for that, okay? Japanese girls are not easy. Everyone's their own unique individual. There is going to be some conflict here and there if you decide to go that route. Now, if you're dating a Japanese girl that's learning English or is learning English and wants to live in a different country, you might have a better chance than dating someone that's traditional Japanese. You know, so yeah, just watch out for that. And also, you know, living in Japan, you will experience things you dislike and like, you know, and be sure to share that with your partner if you are able to speak a higher Japanese level. You know, my Japanese is not that great, but I'm really good at listening to Japanese. I'm just bad at the speaking part, but I try to get my point across sometimes. I'll look in the translation app, I was like, oh, okay, this is how you say it, you know. But the translation app I use is Deep L. So if you guys look up Deep L, deep, like you're deep in the water, and L, and yeah, it's the best translation app. Don't use Google for translation. Google sucks. But also, you know, you could just learn Japanese. But anyway, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be aware if you do date in Japan, that's what's gonna happen. You know, this is my own personal experience. Just watch out. Decide what girl you want to date, whether it's being traditionally and settling down in Japan or settling in another country, you know. And I prefer the girl that prefers to go internationally because as much as I love being in Japan, I prefer to travel. I gotta go somewhere. I can't be stuck in one place. But anyway, see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.